It is Lincon.
Yeah, and it's still
It's him. It's him.
This
Yeah.
Fast guy.
Yeah.
And I try to take him out.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was climbing on you, correct? Again or not?
Yes.
Yes, he had infought. He
so again, then I need to.
You have to move again,
move
but I think you did well enough last time that you have found the right. You guys are not going to have to do that after a success. One time was enough. Now we know you can move and maneuver.
Okay.
So you've got yourself oriented. Pillars, slippery spot. Okay, I'm good. So go ahead and take your strike.
I take my
But
strike.
this has the backing up has basically moved the attack out of the pillars. That's what has happened.
Okay,
Go for it.
and I have
He has a -1 on him
on
right now, and
it's
so
+4.
yes. Mhm.
10.
Oh, okay. And so that one is vulnerable. But yeah, you have missed. Take your -1 for the miss. And so Uzak, that one that he has just attacked, but he has spread out some room, and he is just 3 meters away from you, and it's a clear shot.
Okay, I will try it. 4.
Oh no. Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, you tried. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. And so that puts us at the end of this second set, which clears us. Okay, it is just this one left, and the question really is not going to be too hard. Is he going to kind of realize just how dreadful this is? Is he going to be able to suppress his?
Is he going to ask for mercy?
No, he completely fails to realize his situation, and so therefore, yeah, with a 10, fails the infight. You cannot get past your sword, setting himself up for Hobart. No, for Missandei. If you want to try again,
Of course.
go for it. Yeah, same as before. Actually, he's completely ignoring you.
So +8.
Yeah. Same for you. Well, no.
Well, 20 this time. Total 20.
Okay. Well, in that case, you get a critical. Roll your damage.
So that's the D4, D6.
And then double the result.
D4 and D6. Right, yeah.
Okay,
so that's 8 to 16.
That you basically shred.
Pieces.
Yeah, it's basically shred his neck out from under his head.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So then,
That's really
Got
good.
to got to respect it.
and you are taking a look, and you both now get a
Now
very
we
good
really
look
see- now
at
we
this
really see
wolfy
that.
girl.
Oh, shit.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, thanks.
I exchange some looks with him. Is that the
Evil.
is that our new?
Fortunately, not evil.
No.
Werewolfery is not an evil thing.
No.
It is a physical condition.
We know about werewolves, but
Mhm.
we didn't know that she was a werewolf.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yellow eyes.
Yeah.
Yellow eyes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things are making a lot more sense.
Ah,
Oh,
nice.
right.
So the werewolves is not something basically bad, or it's something that
It's
happens.
socially unacceptable.
It's socially unacceptable.
Right. Or hard to accept.
Oh.
Let me clarify here. They're gone now, but for a long time, the Necromancer Kings were the Western extension, of the evil. But this has been broken by the armies of Ilwraith and the pagan kingdoms. So, but back when the Necromancer Kings had conquered Ilwraith, they used Ilwraith prisoners of war for their magical experiments. Many strange and hideous creatures were made. One such creature was the lycanthrope. Several were made and then released into the general populace of Darkurthe. Decades later, their genes are spread through every realm.
So
Most of them are humans.
but it's basically chaos then.
Because
those
they were the
chaos
yes, but that was the Necromancer Kings,
Aha.
and the experiments themselves don't reek of evil.
No, not even.
They were just experiments. They can be lycanthropes are half-breeds, some other race, part wolf, part some other race, usually human. They can be distinguished by their slightly more savage appearances and large amounts of body hair. And that is...
Maybe it's a condition that can be healed.
We have to do something about
Yeah.
these looks. Perhaps.
Yeah, but I don't
Perhaps a shave.
Yes, I don't take kindly to your looks, and so I'll just growl at you.
That's right. I sense I sense lycanthropism here.
But
still,
rather good work. A little bit sloppy with the sword, but you can come along. We had
You
two.
missed once.
yeah.
You had two one that run.
I think that's your crossbow bolt there and there.
Yes,
Says the master fighter over there.
yes. Because of my shooting, I suppressed the other ones, and then they ran off into the hill.
He does point off. They point that they ran in there.
Yeah.
So, which is useful to know. Well, at that moment, the recording ceased. Or a little bit later, we took a little break, had a little conversation, and then resumed to play, and the recording was finished. But unfortunately, we did not notice, and we continued to play for a while and finished out our session. And I am quite sad about this because there were some very impressive, enjoyable things about that final phase of play. In particular, well, plot-wise, what happened was that they went into the humming, disturbing, throbbing darkness of the former building there, which the other kobolds had set off, the rune. Without going step by step, the backstory involved what had happened to that elf and how the dwarves that had served and honored that particular high elf, how they had been corrupted and they ate him, and all sorts of things terrible happened, and this awful rune had the rune that had protected the place was now corrupted and had become this dreadful thing. So this led to the character Nikald, played by Björn, doing a ceremony. And this was actually fairly impressive, but it played out with the final activities being the conduct of the ceremony and some more interaction among the characters. All of that I just told you so that you could understand the plot activity that was occurring as the interactions among the characters jumped up a notch following the fight. Somewhat, casual content that these two fellows are looking for the heir to the throne of Croatia and don't know that she's a werewolf, and she living out there among her own, knowing that she had been born into that culture and that status to some extent, but not knowing that she is now conceivably the heir to the throne. And it's so far, up until the final events of the fight, she and her friend had been disinclined to do anything about that. And the other two, realizing that she's a werewolf, are still kind of dubious as to just how rough around the edges is this presumptive heir to the throne, and are they really, interested in bringing her back, and how clean upable, how much of a fixer-upper, is she? So all of these are questions going in. The players could conceivably have just dropped all that as imposed game master justification for having a fight in the first place, but they didn't. They worked it up through a series of interactions into some conclusions that probably would not have been the case, would not have been there conclusions if the whole thing had just been a conversation based on their first meeting. One thing that mattered a lot was that Missandei had, after some difficulties, concluded the fight and when she and her companion could easily have scampered away while the two kind of, studly dudes are busy fighting their way through the kobolds, which, although they had done well, was, as I think was evident, not entirely one-sided. They could have gone, it could have gone badly for one or the other, even up until the last moment. But they didn't run off. In fact, Uzak had told Missandei, get back in there. They need, a tough girl like you. And so, or it advised, I wouldn't say told. But anyway, the point was that she had come back to help them into the fight. That at first, Uzak was kind of manipulative. I mean, following this, Uzak was kind of manipulative to try to get Nikalds to go in and, like, take point on any dangers that Uzak is still interested in going in and looting the place of some presumed, artifacts, some runic devices or symbols or stuff that he's hunting for. But Nikeld, the way he handled it, actually impressed Uzak. As Hobart and Missandei came in following them into the humming, terrifying darkness, Johan did something role-playing wise that was just perfect. Hung back just a little. Hobart walks after the first two who've gone in first, and Missandei, strips down and goes full wolf. So when Hobart turns, when he hears, his companion coming up next to him, turns and realizes that, a wolf is padding along next to him, and his response was entirely, buddy-like, very much comrade in arms, accepting of her. And that clinched it. That following the ceremony, which was striking, it involved a remarkable role for one thing, and there were a lot of things going on in his favor. It worked out really strongly for them. And then at that point, Missandei said, I'm coming back to Croatia with you guys. I'm interested, right? I'm impressed by the experience of, this miracle kind of thing, but you two strike me as okay. Let's go back and see what there is to offer. So very much without forcing it, we saw how Missandei and Uzak became convinced that instead of, blowing these guys off or just using them to run interference while they had their mountain adventures, instead said, let's take them at their word. Let's take them. Let's take seriously what their priorities are and see how this goes. Maybe we could use a new life, especially if evil shit like this is going on, in these mountains. That's clearly more than just you and I can handle as a pair of friends. Let's go and check things out at that level and see what our participation might be. So it came together as a set of interactions among the characters that I found very compelling. I looked back upon it and saw that it crested at the end of the fight and developed into new forms through a series of interactions among all four that could not have occurred without the other three. And I'm, again, quite sad, much as it might have been fun to share with you the mechanics of the ceremony, letting you watch, the magic system in place or in action. That is one thing, but the enjoyment of the nature of the entire situation changing strictly based on what players were enjoying having their characters do, and it made sense to them what they may do next. All of that was quite joyous, actually, and I'm sorry you didn't get to watch that part. I have one or two other small points. One, as I said in the beginning, my first time being a game master for Darkurthe Legends. And yes, indeed, I spotted several face-palming, dumbass moments on my part in terms of the system application. First of all, the heavy weapons that Nikald and Hobart were using, even though they were competent fighters with decent attributes, would not have allowed them to use every single available phase they had for an attack. There would have had to have been more uh, levering their weapons into position, stepping into place, using actions for movement and other maneuvers besides just raw attack. So that's one thing. Another was that I didn't have a couple of the kobolds go berserk or have the chance to go berserk when they should have, which would have made them even more formidable in a couple of places. And so the kobolds were just a little bit less dangerous than I had thought of them, or as they were, built to be by the system. They were straight out of the book, basically. And so the fact that both of those guys got off without a scratch, I was wondering, wow, that's interesting. And then I realized, oh, well, that was a +3 combat ability that a couple of them didn't have. So I missed those two things. And I believe I cheated Johan out of one action. He saved a phase for the third attack phase, and then I forgot about that and thought that everybody was clear for the third attack phase and jumped into the next round. I just realized that when I was editing. So I think Missandei got cheated out of an action. And finally, Uzak was a character that I had kind of thrown together the day before and was sort of enjoying the idea that one of the characters wouldn't be quite as combat-y as the others, but in retrospect or watching it, I realized that Jurgen was kind of screwed out of enjoying the fight as much as he could by playing a character that A, wasn't able to go in and mix it up as competently as the others, and B, really did the right thing by not running into the cave / ruins by himself. I mean, he was smart enough not to do that, but again, that kind of leaves him with not much. My preparation for that had actually not been too bad, and through the beginning, when we rolled for his contraption, my whole idea was that should he build one or two cool contraptions that would sort of bring him up to speed with the others, perhaps from a completely different angle of play. Unfortunately, I did not come up with a good enough contraption concept for his crossbow. I gave it an advantage over an ordinary crossbow in terms of timing, but that didn't do much considering that his fighting skill was quite low. So his crossbow bolts went all over the place, and so the contraption roll did not have the compensating, or especially an interesting compensating factor in being not just another fighter that it could have. I mean, if I had said, "Oh wait, that contraption does all sorts of things," all right, you've got your your +5, or some sort of thing on it that actually made it a formidable invention. Something that you look at and say, "Wow, your contraptioning, has created this device for you, a custom device for you that actually makes you quite fearsome in its use." So I don't think that I honored his rather decent contraption role into something that it deserved, and so that kind of left Björn out in the cold for some of that. He was a good sport about it, but I think that that definitely gets chalked up to note for future Darkurthe play. The contraptions roles and a few of the other roles should well be chop into play quite strongly. Last thing along those lines, I reviewed the ceremony rules and technically what you should do. And this is for ceremony and for channeling and for some of the singing magic. You should go to the same spell construction rules as as though runes and wizardry. And you go and you say, what effect am I looking for? And you kind of build it up through their point system. And then that gives you a subtraction on your casting roll. And you're supposed to do that for those, although to understand that by reading the rules, you have to squint a little. You have to sort of recognize, oh, so okay, so there I'm supposed to apply that. You can't just say, oh, whatever I want, and then make a raw roll with no minuses and see if you get it. If that had been the case, it may well have put um, it may well have put um, Björn's role for Nikald for the ceremony. I'm trying to remember, he got over 30, so even like a -7 or something like that still would have been, a rockin' success. It might not, however, have been a full visitation from, God that we played, which you didn't see, but that's what we played. So it still would have been pretty awesome, but it might not have been that kind of blowout roll. Probably wouldn't have been that kind of blowout roll that we played. So I think that's a pretty complete list of, Ron Screws Up Game Mastering Darkurthe Legends, all of which have sort of sunk into my psyche, with barbs of shame, and with any luck, I will have learned my lesson, for the next time.